The story begins on a rainy day in Seoul. We see many cars carrying the president of South Korea. He arrives at a mansion and a man comes out of the mansion and welcomes him. He asks him to come alone from that point forward. The bodyguards of the Blue House were objecting this request, but the president asks them to calm down and he agrees to go along with him, alone. Inside the mansion, the president meets the chairman of the Crimson Moon gang, Yoon Yushin. The president bows before him and told him that now they acknowledge the Crimson Moon as an inviolable organization and would officially cease any further intervention. And he requests that he call off all his men and end his attempts to assassinate him. Chairman Shin laughs at him, and from that point forward, Crimson Moon became the biggest gang in Korea, whom even the government fears. At another place, a man comes running to the police station and told the cops there that some gangsters were after him. The protagonist of the story comes to his help, and as he was trying to help him, a man slams that guy's face on the table. These goons were from the Crimson Moon, and they were after him because he wasn't paying them the loan that he took from them. They start beating him in front of the cops, and all they could do was to just watch. They laugh at that guy for trying to ask the cops for help. Instead of helping the guy, the cops apologized to them for any inconvenience. As they were taking that guy to sell his organs in the market to pay his debts to them, our protagonist, Ryu, stops him and arrests him for assault and intimidation. The others cops were terrified and shocked by his action. That man, Tae-gyung-go, was also surprised and mocks him for his bravado. Chief Min apologizes to Young on his behalf and orders Ryu to take the handcuffs off of him. But instead of taking them off, he asks him to give his another hand so that he could arrest him. Young punches him, making him fall to the floor. Chief Min requests him to let him go this time, but he insults him. He told Ryu to not embarrass himself and take off the handcuffs, but instead, he gets back up and warns them if they don't cooperate, he would have to use force. Young gets angry and starts beating him. Young was strong and was dominating Ryu in the fight. He was brutally beating him, leaving only enough life in him so that he doesn't die. He orders the other cops to take off the handcuffs and told them that he would need at least 6 months of intensive care. As they were leaving, his minions noticed something and told Young to look behind. When he turns around, he sees Ryu standing in front of them. He was now like a totally different person, and he even was a lot bigger than before. A few months earlier, at a secret lab, Ryu was in critical condition. He had 38 injuries, and 9 of them were fatal. Due to excessive blood loss, his body was going into cardiac arrest. Doctors were trying their best to save him, but in the end, they failed and declared him deceased. While all the doctors were in shock, a doctor starts laughing as he just discovered something amazing. He says that he had gotten someone who has the potential to even surpass the Crimson Moon chairman. He curses the Crimson Moon for burying his wife and daughter alive, and was now planning on taking his revenge on him. The other doctors call him out on laughing at a situation like this, and accuse him of the patient's death, because if he had acted sooner, the patient could have survived. The doctor calls them morons and told them that he was not dead yet. They see that the dead body had came to life. The doctor orders them to take as much blood from him as possible. He was going to make an age-reversing drug with the healing effect of his blood. Back to the present time, Ryu throws the thugs out of the police station. He had beaten all of them up. A man also comes there and notices that Ryu gets stronger and stronger as he gets beaten up. The man calls him by his full name, Saiwon Ryu, indicating he already knew about him. The next day, seeing Ryu all healed up just overnight, the other cops were a little creeped out about that, and they say it was not the first time that had happened. Chief Min apologizes to him for not helping him when he was fighting the Crimson Moon. Ryu understands that they had families, and that's why they were afraid to go against them. On the same evening, it was raining and they were about to head home, when they see Tae-gyung outside with more men, and this time they were also armed. He orders all his men to kill everyone in the police station. They start killing any cop they could get their hands on. When one of them was about to kill Chief, Ryu pinches the guy, saving his life in time. Young threatens him that he was going to kill him this time, and he couldn't defeat all of them. Ryu jumps straight for Young. They were trying to hold him but they weren't able to do so, because he was just too strong for them. Because he had recently bulked up, his body was not able to transform again, and he was worried that he was gonna let everyone get killed. He was thinking all this when one of them stabs him with a knife. But seeing Ryu standing even after that, he was terrified. The man from earlier was there this time also. He had orders from the doctor to not intervene too hastily. He needed to be pushed over the edge for him to hold a grudge against the Crimson Moon. So he decides to watch for the time being. Ryu had defeated many of them already, but eventually, He was caught by them because his body was not transforming as it did earlier. They were baffled by his strength and wondered how could he be so strong. Young had his knife on Chief Min and was going to kill him to set an example for him to not mess with the Crimson Moon. Ryu begs him not to kill him because his daughter only has him after his wife died, and asks him to kill him instead. Young says that he would kill him too, but from the start, he had planned on killing everyone. He killed the chief in front of him, and now he was going to kill Ryu. Ryu threatens to kill each one of them. As Young was going to kill him, he sees one of his men slammed against the wall and was beaten up by someone. When he sees behind him, all his men had been taken care of by one man. It was that guy from earlier. He attacks them and starts beating each one of them, and in just a few minutes, he took care of everyone except Young. Young was wondering where all these freaks are coming from. He attacks him with his knife, but he catches the knife and shatters it into pieces. He attacks Young, making him fall to the ground unconscious. He goes to Ryu and says that he had heard he gets stronger every time he gets beaten. He said he was disappointed and calls him pathetic. The guy takes him to the nearest hospital. He was wondering if this guy could really take down Crimson Moon when he couldn't even deal with their weakest members. A few days earlier, in a prison, a man named Dokkel, a notorious murderer who killed 18 people 10 years ago, was being executed today. All those men he killed were from Crimson Moon. That same doctor was also there, and he gives him a pill to swallow. Dokkel takes the pill thinking it was a poisonous pill. As soon as he takes the pill, he starts screaming in pain and his body starts to transform. He turns into his younger self. He was the same guy who had helped Ryu. The doctor had warned him not to go after the leader of the Crimson Moon alone. He was not the same man he used to be 10 years ago. If he goes alone, he wouldn't be able to land a finger on that monster. But Dokkel ignores his warning and decided to go after him anyway. Dokkel was one of the 4 sickos, and he was the one who drove Shin to the brink of death 10 years ago. Shin manages to get past his guards and security cameras, and now he was under his nose without him knowing. But Shin notices him. He releases his power, due to which Dokkel wasn't able to breathe and realizes he was not the same Shin he had fought 10 years ago. He had managed to surpass the ability to strengthen his body using his power, and now he could use that power externally. If Dokkel doesn't get out of there quickly, he was going to die. Shin stops releasing his power. His assistant asks him if he sensed anything. He told him that he thought he sensed Dokkel's aura for a moment. His assistant was surprised to hear that name and asked Shin if he was strong like him. Shin told him that the 4 sickos had almost killed him in the past once. If he hadn't turned them against each other, the Crimson Moon wouldn't have existed today. Dokkel manages to escape. His body started to turn back to old again. He curses the doctor for not telling him beforehand that he could turn old at any moment. At the secret lab of Dr. Young Min, the doctor was having a meal when Dokkel arrives there. He slams his face on the floor and accuses him of trying to turn him into a slave using those pills, to which the doctor replies that it doesn't come for free. It makes him even angrier, and as he was about to kill him, someone else enters the room. Dokkel calls him by the name Dongoli. He was one of the sickos as well, and he had just woken up from coma. The doctor had used the drug on him as well, making him young and powerful again. He attacks Dokkel out of the blue. Dokkel was confused about why he was attacking him. He punches him as well, but as his pills had worn off, he had no strength now. Donga slams him to the ground. The doctor asks about his meeting with Shin. He had told him not to go after Shin before awakening Ryu's potential. At the funeral of those officers who had died that day, Ryu was also there. Everyone was cursing him for being the only one who survived, even after being stabbed dozens of times. They were murmuring that even after all his colleagues were dead, he still wouldn't even shed a tear. Ryu was hearing all this. Dokkel was also there to keep an eye on Ryu. In the news, Taegyung had been freed from the murder charges as his alibi was confirmed, leading to his release. Ryu was furious at him. His whole body was trembling with anger. Someone throws a spoon at him. It was Chief Min's daughter Jin. She blames him for his dad's death and asks him to do something about it and catch the man who killed her father. He gets out of there, determined to kill Taegyung with his own 2 hands. His body starts transforming in anger when Dog-kul comes there. He stops him from going out there to kill him in his situation. Ryu gets angry and wants him if he didn't take his hands off him. He was going to kill him, even though he had saved his life. Dokkel provokes him saying what he was going to do if he didn't let him go, and shows him his power. Ryu wasn't even able to see his attack. Dokkel challenged him that if he managed to hit him even once, he would not only let him go, but he would also help him kill Taegyung. Ryu gets annoyed and attacks him, which he easily avoids and punches Ryu. He was insulting him for being so weak. Ryu launches a surprise attack which he barely dodges. Dokal attacks him again, but this time he grabs his hand and manages to land a hit to his face. As he was going to attack him again, Dokal stops him and Ryu wins the bet. Ryu demands to let him go now as he managed to land a hit on him. Dokal accepts his loss, but he still didn't let him go, saying he would need more practice, and he gets in position to fight him again. On the other hand, Taegyong was celebrating his coming out of the prison with his goons. He says that nobody could lift a finger on him if the president himself licks their shoes. But he was wondering who was the guy who had attacked them that day. Taegyong had never felt a strong punch like that in his entire life. Then he realizes that he might be a Glee user, just like the chairman and the senior members of the Crimson Moon. As he was thinking all this, he hears a loud noise outside. It was Ryu, who had beaten all of his minions outside, and he threatens to kill Taegyong as well. Taegyong's whole body was trembling with fear, thinking about why a mere cop kept coming after him again and again. He orders all his men to kill him. All of them attack him at once, but this time, instead of getting hit by them first, he attacks them from the start. And in a few moments, he had taken care of everyone, and now it was Taegyong's turn. In anger, Taegyong attacks him and starts punching him continuously, not giving him any chance to fight back. Dokal calls him stupid for trying to kill him because Ryu could not be killed. Ryu grabs his hand and strikes a strong punch to his face, saying she wishes you the best. He was punched so hard that he got thrown out through the window and lands directly on the ground from 3 stories. Even after falling that up high, Taegyong was still alive. Some folks try to help him, but he gets up and just ran. Ryu was going after him when Dokal stops him and told him where he might have gone. He told him that he might have run to Inshu Park, the Crimson Moon's branch manager for District H and the vice captain of Red Moon Cash. Inshu Park was a top-class Glia user. Most of the Crimson Moon leaders, vice presidents, and app are Glia users. Inshu Park was a Glia user of the lowest level. Even so, Ryu wouldn't be able to defeat him with his current skills. At the Red Moon Cash, Branch H Inshu was scolding Taegyong for getting beaten up by a mere cop and coming to him for help. Young tries to explain to him what happened, but he doesn't believe him. Inshu was ordering his men to take care of Ryu when Young sees something on the surveillance camera and was terrified inside out. He shows Inshu what was going on. It was Ryu on the screen, and he was beating his men left and right. Ryu was overpowering them from the start, even without transforming. Dokal was also there, but he wasn't helping in the fight. He was just there to encourage him. He told him that he didn't have to get hit first to get stronger. He should strike first instead. And that's what he was doing this time. But there were too many of them, and eventually, they managed to grab him and start beating him brutally. Inshu insults Young, saying how could he lose to someone like that guy, who was put down so easily. Young says to him while trembling that the fight was not over just yet. He was just getting started, and the men in the lobby suddenly started to scream for help and ask for more backup. Young's whole body was trembling with fear when he saw that he had changed again. Ryu screams his lungs out and was calling Taegyong to come out. He was extremely furious. Inshu issues a red alert and orders all the employees to stop working and stop him. Ryu says that he didn't want to fight small fries, and demands to bring Taegyong to him. He jumps to fight them head-on and the fight begins. This time he was more brutal and angry. Inshu was wondering if he was also a Glia user, but he hadn't heard anyone having Glia outside Crimson Moon. Now Inshu was interested as well. Ryu had beaten up everyone, but his powers were all drained and he got back to his original form. Dokal suggests he go back home for today, as he was in no position to fight Inshu, but he was determined to kill Taegyong today no matter what. He also threatens Dokal that if he gets in his way, he would kill him too. Dokal doesn't stop him and lets him do whatever he wants. When Ryu was going up, some goons were about to come down to the lobby to fight, but he takes care of them in the lift and reaches the top floor where Inshu was waiting for him. Ryu says to him that he just wanted Young and that he didn't have to fight him. If he gave Young to him, he would leave. Inshu gets angry and attacks him so fast that he didn't even see it coming. He was quick and strong for him to handle in his situation right now. He grabs him by the neck and slams him to the ground and starts beating him brutally. When he stopped, Ryu was on the ground, unable to move. Inshu was mocking him for his bravado when he sees someone else come out of the elevator. It was Dokal. Seeing him, Young starts sweating bucket. When Inshu asks who he was, Young warns him, saying he was even more dangerous than the guy before. Darkle didn't want to get involved in this mess, but he had clear orders from the doctor that if Ryo died he wouldn't get any more of those pills. Inshu asks him who was he, but he ignores him, and that makes him angry. He attacks Darkle, which he easily avoids, and now Darkle strikes back, breaking his bones. Inshu screams at him, asking if he was a Glia user as well. Darkle attacks him again, which he tries to block with his punch, but all his fingers break instead. Inshu screams in pain while wondering who this guy was, and with his next punch, Darkle manages to defeat Inshu Park. All his men ran away, leaving Taegyung alone. Young begs Darkle to spare him, to which he replies why would he be the one to kill him when he wasn't even the one who wanted revenge on him. Young was relieved after hearing this when he hears Ryu getting up. He was terrified from the inside out. Ryu gets up and threatens to kill him. In extreme fear, Young loses his mind and attacks Ryu before he could attack him. It was his desperate attempt to survive somehow and was wishing him to just die. But Ryu grabs Young, and Young desperately tries to get him off him. Ryu bites out his ear, making him scream in pain and anger, threatening to kill Ryu. While he was screaming at him, Ryu strikes again and lands a strong punch to his face. Young's body stops moving after just one punch. But Ryu was not done yet. He kept punching him again and again and again, taking out his anger and frustration on Young's dead body. Darkle stops him, telling him he was already dead and congratulates him on his first murder. Ryu drops to the floor from exhaustion. Darkle drags him to his place, saying that the Crimson Moon was now gonna come after them. The next morning, Hanjin Kim, vice president of the Western District of the Crimson Moon, comes there with his men. He was furious to see what was in front of his eyes, and asks them who dared to go up against the Crimson Moon. And then he sees Inshu Park and was shocked to see him in that situation as well. He asks him which organization did this, to which Inshu replies that it wasn't an organization, it was just two men. Vice Prez was in disbelief after thinking how just two men could do this much damage. Inst told him that one of them was a user, and the other one was a police officer. The Vice Prez asked him where Taegyung was, and he sees that he was dead. Vice Prez orders his men to take all the bodies to the hospital and orders them to keep it a secret from the main branch. When he was about to leave, he hears something. When he looks back, he sees Taegyung standing on his feet, alive, and calls him a monster.